Hello, I'm Kathleen Fernandez, the Executive Director of New Jersey TESOL, NJTESOL-NJBE, and today I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Farrah Mahan, the Director of Curriculum for Cherry Hill School District, and Violeta Katsikis, the Supervisor of Curriculum for Cherry Hill School District. And we're going to be talking about how they dealt with technology and remote learning when school ended for Emergent Bilinguals. So to begin with, what issues did you find when school ended in March and you had to move to remote learning?
Sure, so I'll get us started. As school closed, I think school closure really has exacerbated some of the inequities that were already in place for our English language learners. We've been really working hard to address those inequities and ensure that our ELs and their families well, that we stay connected with them, that we can effectively communicate with them, and that we really provide care and comfort. So early on, some of the issues that we noticed, the first issue easily visible was access. They didn't have access to all of the resources that were needed for online learning, such as devices, hotspots, internet access. And the second issue we really noticed was communication. The majority of our communication was in English, and not all of our families were receiving important information regarding meals, distribution of devices, instruction, and other supports that were being offered through the county and the district. Our third issue was really focused around equity. And we recently read an article in the New York Times really highlighting this, that virtual learning is difficult for all staff, for all teachers, for all principals, but it's especially difficult for families where English is not their dominant language, or they're still learning English. Parents aren't able to support their students as easily in some of these platforms that are new. So imagine learning, English language and English grammar in addition to learning how to use a platform. So that definitely posed an issue for a lot of our ELs and their families early on.
Great. So what were your initial steps to resolve that inequity and provide them with instruction online?
So Violeta, do you want me to start with the first one?
Sure.
So in regards to providing technology to all of our families, we were able to provide all of our EL families with Chromebooks, and that was not only for our ELs, but for every family in the district who was in need. In addition to that, we also provided our families with hotspots, because it's one thing to have a device, but you need to be able to access the internet and available platforms to be able to continue your learning virtually. So we did both of those. And we also had additional distribution days intended specifically for our ELs and their families. And as an example, at one of our high schools, we also had a bilingual teacher and a secretary working directly with our administrative team to distribute the devices, to call parents, to translate during distribution times, and also to explain the importance of the virtual learning experience and the expectations for students while school is closed. So we try to address this particular population directly and to make sure that we were efficient with our communication with the families. So Violeta, do you want to address issue number 2?
Sure, and to bounce off of the communication, interestingly, about 1.5 years ago, our district's Equity, Culture Proficiency, and Character Education Committee had created something we call the We Speak survey. And we surveyed all of the staff members in Cherry Hill to see if anyone speaks a language in addition to English, and if they would be willing to support any new families that we welcomed at the time of registration, when they visited their first day at the school, just to welcome families with open arms in their native language. So interestingly, that We Speak survey and the results came in very handy these last several weeks, because we had access to a number of staff members who were multilingual, some speaking more than 2 languages. And to give you a specific example, we had a family at one of our elementary schools that speaks Hindi, and not a dominant language in Cherry Hill. However, we did have 2 staff members, 2 educational assistants, who worked in different buildings and had no prior connection to the family. But what they were able to do through Google Meet and a virtual call is really just guide the family on how to get into the Google Classroom, how to turn in an assignment, because there's a specific, button to turn in an assignment. And if you're unaware of that, it could, keep you from being engaged in class. And that quick 5-minute interaction with our educational assistant and this elementary family really established a clear path for the student to be able to engage further. So that was a great, use of something we had done previously with a, wasn't the intended purpose, but absolutely reap the benefits.
Yeah, that's an excellent resource to have.
And then our ESL teachers have really been advocates for life. They always have been. I think that's one of their dominant parts of their role. So they've worked extra hard to advocate and to remind all the classroom teachers that students need accommodations and modifications, even with virtual learning. So a lot of the modifications and accommodations they had in the classroom didn't transfer, aren't able to be done in person. With virtual learning, we had to be creative with some of the modifications we do. So our ESL teachers are part of a number of Google Classrooms and receive a lot of the instruction or the lesson plans ahead of time, and really chunk out the lessons, do some background knowledge with the vocabulary ahead of time, so the ESL students can access that information within their classrooms and with their teachers.
Yeah, that's an excellent strategy.
And these historically underrepresented populations within our district, including ELs, are always a standing agenda item at all of our administrative meetings. I think our community has definitely rallied behind these populations and these groups to ensure that they receive everything, all resources that they need to be successful. And constantly during our meetings and our interactions with families and with staff and with administration, we're asking questions like, but what about these students? How will it impact them? Will they be able to access this resource? How will we be able to reach them? How will they be able to reach this resource? So I think having historically underrepresented populations at the forefront is something that we thrive with as a district and as a community.
That's great. And actually that goes to my next question, was when you were getting that technology, was Cherry Hill funding it directly from their budget, or were you using Title III funds? How were you funding getting that material?
We were funding directly from our budget because we felt that this was something that all of our students needed access to, irregardless of a subgroup category.
That's great. That's great. All right. And now looking forward, how do you see technology working in the future, as we now know that this is the way the school year is going to end? Are you going to be doing any additional steps to reach out to the emergent bilingual population and their families? What are your thoughts on that?
So certainly we had families have different needs in week 1 and 2 of instruction than they do in weeks 7 and 8. We need to listen to the families. We planned, we created action plans and adjusted. I think flexibility is probably a word, and this doesn't apply just to our ELs or just to technology, just with online learning or distance learning as a whole. We've tried to be flexible and listen to what the needs are within each period, within each week, and within each family. We did find, as I mentioned earlier, that communication was a hindrance in some instances, so we started to use translation apps like Remind and Class Dojo and really take advantage of those features for our staff to be able to communicate and to ensure that our messages were received, understood, and then for families to be able to communicate. That two-way communication is key to really ensuring student engagement and learning. And again, making sure that our ESL students had devices. A lot of our ESL teachers have the strongest relationships with their students, so they reached out personally to ensure that devices were in homes. And maybe week 1, we didn't know that. And maybe week 3 or week 4, we found out some of the instances that the student hasn't been online because they didn't have a charger. When they took the device, they didn't pick up a charger. So small instances where we were able to kind of fill in the gaps to ensure almost all of our students were engaged.
Great. And actually, go ahead.
I was going to say, in addition to what Violeta just mentioned, we have a very strong technology department. So our device distribution, including Chromebooks as well as hotspots, continues. We are still distributing devices up until today, and we plan to continue that through the remainder of the school closure. But for our technology department, we have several bilingual staff members in that department, and we have set up something called a student support email or direct communication line, so that if our families are in need of technology support, whether it is on their personal device or on a device they are using in their home, they can reach out directly to that platform and receive direct technology assistance back from someone in our technology department. So we're really trying to make sure that every potential question that could be asked by our families, we have gotten ahead of and are able to answer. And in addition to the technology piece, I think Violeta did a nice job with connecting that. Our ESL teachers have really been the connection to our families, and they have been working directly with the administration to ensure that the families are contacted, that the students are engaged. And for families who still have not been able to navigate the technology piece, our ESL teachers have created paper packets for those students to continue their learning that mirrors what our students who are using the devices have. So just taking that little extra step to ensure continuity of learning for all students within Cherry Hill Public Schools.
So those students actually have been given technology, but they're having difficulty managing it, and they have additional paper support. That's awesome. That's really great.
Correct.
I just had a question about maybe in-person scheduling when you have multiple children in a family, because I know personally that a lot of times there's not enough devices for people to meet when every student in the family has to meet with their teacher. How have you managed that?
So with the technology deployment, we did not deploy one device per home. We deployed one device per child.
Oh, that's
so
great.
At the beginning of the deployment, in the initial stages, we did have multiple families coming and just picking up one device. And then after we had been in the closure for a few days, they came back and said, I thought this was going to work on one device with us sharing. It is not working. Can we please have another one? So we sent out additional messaging saying, you know, we are giving a device to every child who is a registered student in Cherry Hill Public Schools. If you need an additional device, please come and sign a device out. We have more than enough to provide every student who is in need of one. And, you know, we have multiple families with, you know, 4 children, 3 children who every needs to have their own device to complete their assignments. And,
including mom and dad.
Yes, including mom and dad, yes. And we also took that into, I was going to say one more thing, Violeta. We also took that into consideration when we were deciding on the bandwidth of the hotspots. So some of our families have, you know, 1 child. So the bandwidth that they need to be able to access the internet is greatly reduced in comparison to a family of 6 who may be accessing the internet who also needs a hotspot. So we did vary our bandwidth size on the different hotspots that we deployed based on family count.
That's great. And where did you get your hotspots from? Did you use a particular company? Were you using your internet provider?
We did. We partnered with T-Mobile as well as with Kajit. So both of those companies and organizations have been able to provide us with devices for our families.
That's great. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and to go back to something we mentioned earlier, our ESL teachers, in addition to, you know, ensuring engagement, that they have devices, that there are enough devices, that we have bandwidth, really have been going outside of the instructional aspect of teaching, as many teachers do, and ensure students have meals. And they've been personally delivering meals to a lot of the homes. And that gives them that one-on-one, even though they're not going close and they're leaving the meals on the doorstep, or they're leaving the meals at the driveway of homes, or in the lobbies of apartment buildings. They're just reminding students, don't forget to log in, you know, our Google Meet classes Friday at noon. And that interaction with students has really helped engage the most anxious or the most reluctant learners.
Yeah, that's really going above and beyond.
Absolutely.
And it's like, as a teacher, a former teacher, like, I know that I would have been doing that, you know, in my district. And I think that really does get your students to feel engaged, right? To be able to participate. That's really wonderful. I think Cherry Hill has done an awesome job in terms of reaching out to their students.
We do really have a wonderful staff, a wonderful community, and then wonderful leadership. We're blessed.
Yes. Do you ladies have any other comments or information that you could share with us?
I would like to highlight one point. Now that we have gotten direction from the governor and from the commissioner that schools will be closed for the remainder of the academic year, one of the things that we are currently working on is support or continuity of learning throughout the summer months and what that will look like for our students. So making sure that all of our families have access to their devices through the summer months, as well as to their hotspots through the summer months, and making sure that as a district, we are reaching out and maintaining the relationship, because we all know as educators that we are going to see some regression from this, and we want to maintain relationships with families during this difficult time. So we will continue to provide virtual platforms, academic support, and resources throughout the summer months to ensure that, if and when we do return in the fall, that we have hopefully reduced the regression that we may see in our students and the disconnect that we may see with our students.
And if I could add just one ending piece as well, I try to remind our teachers this as often as possible, because I feel like this is a scary time for many. It is a tense time for families and for staff, and it's different. And I think some of our teachers are working hard to try and replicate what's done in the classroom, but instruction looks different. Assessments have to look different. Feedback that we give has to look different. And I think teachers have to take a deep breath, stay calm, be patient, be creative, and really be kind to themselves, because they're going through uncharted territories. And I think as teachers stay calm, students will stay calm, and families will stay calm. And, together is the only way we'll get through this and come out, as Dr. Mahan mentioned, above what we'd expect to be in September. So just a kind of advice for everyone to take it easy on themselves.
I think that's excellent advice. And I think you both have done an awesome job supporting your emergent bilinguals in Cherry Hill. And I thank you for speaking with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to speak with Mary Mansfield from Medford Township and Jenny Leonardi from Lumberton Township. Both of these are small suburban districts in Burlington County. So when school ended back in March, what were your technology situations for your emergent bilinguals at that time? Mary?
Well, we are a small district. We're a K-8 district, and we do have Chromebooks in the classroom, and we do have technology, and the students use technology every day in the classrooms. However, my students do not have technology in the home. They are using mostly smartphones. Their parents are using smartphones. Their parents use Facebook. They use some social apps. They text, and they talk on the phone. They're not using email. Our main way of communicating with the parents has been email. So that has been a challenge. So the families were not using email, the main way we communicate, and they didn't have technology basically beyond a little tablet with some games and some smartphones in the phones in the homes.
Right. What about Lumberton, Jenny?
I'm lucky to be in Lumberton. They've had a incentive to make sure that all the children have Chromebooks, a one-on-one program from 3rd grade to 8th grade, and our 6th through 8th graders all have their own Chromebooks that actually travel back and forth with them to school. 3rd through 5th have Chromebooks, but they stay in this classroom all day. And so on March 9th, they sent home a survey to all the students to see if they actually had Wi-Fi and internet at home. The problem came when most of my students said, oh yeah, we have Wi-Fi, because they could use their cell phones. But when they actually tried to use the Chromebooks when we got home on March 17th, they realized that it didn't work for a Chromebook. It wasn't enough power because it wasn't actually coming into their own home. It wasn't in their name. So we had to go and help them get internet.
And you know what, let me add here. Our situation is somewhat similar. We don't take, the students do have the Chromebooks in school, but they do not take them home. And very similar situation with the Wi-Fi. They don't have devices at home, so they didn't need to have that Wi-Fi. So that again was a challenge. So that was also something that we had to deal with our students and getting them that information.
And
So
then
I was gonna say, so then how did you go about getting that, the Wi-Fi for the students?
I also had to survey my families, get in contact with them, because everything was going out by email. Like all that information was going out by email, and these families weren't communicating back. So I had to reach out and get in touch with my families. I have a fairly large Spanish population, and unfortunately my Spanish is minimal. So we have a couple people on staff that speak Spanish that were so helpful to me. I created a talking points list about information we needed to know. And actually the Spanish teacher at the middle school contacted these families to survey them to see what they needed. And then we created a document. Well, we found out who needed Chromebooks. We got Chromebooks delivered to those families. And if there was multiple children, they had multiple Chromebooks delivered to them.
Oh, that's great.
And then we also created a document about how they could get on, because there's a lot of free Wi-Fi going on now. And we created that, and that was created in Spanish, and that was given with the Chromebook when they were delivered to the families.
Great. How about Lumberton, Jenny? What did they do?
So after we reached out to them, some of my students in the beginning of the year did not have internet connection at home. So we were able to give those students hotspots. The tech department was able to get them. And we were also lucky that other school districts near us lent us some hotspots until we could purchase them. And the hotspots were delivered to children who needed them. Chromebooks were delivered to children who needed them. Our kindergarten through second grade, if an ESL student was in need of a Chromebook, they were also given one. Many of those children just use their own home devices. And we were able to get the hotspots. They're going to use the CARES Act to help reimburse some of those the hotspots for the kids.
Okay, so for district funds, they're using the CARES.
Right.
That's great. What once you got all the technology out, were there other technology issues that you were finding with your students?
Yes, it took us about 2 weeks to get everybody a Chromebook, internet, and how to get on it and how to get into their Google Classroom. They knew how to get into Google Classroom, but the problem was we were using platforms to have meetings face-to-face. That was a challenge for the students. And then our district unfortunately had an issue with our original platform. So after success for about 4 weeks of using that one platform, we had to switch over to Google Meets. And so again, there was another week of a learning curve of trying to get everybody onto the correct platform and understand how to log in. So we've had some interesting learning curves over the about 7 weeks we've been home.
I think pretty much everyone's had that same kind of learning curve. All right. What about you, Mary? Once they got their technology?
Well, let me just back up, because when we first started, we had packets that went home, learning packets that went home for the first 2 weeks. When this all happened, there was no idea. I mean, we thought we were coming back after spring break. So there was a learning packet with 2 weeks worth of work. And that was standard throughout the district, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade. They were all sent home packets. And we were easing into Google Classroom, because we use Google Classroom. The kids use it at school from third grade up. Unfortunately, we have kindergarten, first and second, that are starting to learn a little bit about it, but really don't know that much about it. So then at the third week, that's when we started implementing Google Meetings. That's when we started working on Google Classroom, and they were given pushed out assignments. And then after spring break is when we started really teaching online. We were communicating the whole time, and again with that email, which was really difficult. But we still have challenges today because these families are not used to communicating by email. And I know I keep talking about email, but that's our means of communication with them. But what I'm doing is I'm working with the teachers and students that are not doing their work, they're not showing up. I have a person within the district, not the teacher anymore because she's doing her own teaching, but somebody else that reaches out. In fact, you know, today I sent her an email. We need to get in touch with these families because we have a child that is not doing work and she's a great student. And we want to know why, what's happening. Is there a problem with technology? Is there a problem with the Wi-Fi? You know, and she's not communicating back. So, and we have technical difficulties too. Kids don't, even though we have used these platforms at school, they get home, it's a whole different world. And using that platform at home is not the same thing as when the teacher says, okay, go here, do this, go, and the teacher's right there, and they have their peers from as well. They have nobody to learn from. They are stuck there by themselves. If they can't do an assignment, oh, well, they don't do it. And, you know, when I contact them, because I'll do that as well, I do individual lessons with the kids. Like I'll set up half-hour, 40-minute periods where I go in and actually do their classwork with them, as well as meeting with the ELL groups. So those are some of the technical difficulties that I've run into.
I would say in Lumberton, we hit the ground running on March 17th. We went right to online learning on the very first day. So that was a bit of a challenge to get everybody in. I spent a lot of time making phone calls, going to Go Guardian, walking children through each step of the process, trying my best to translate, asking other staff members to help me translate, reaching out to the teachers. I've had parent conferences and meetings in the evening when parents, many of them are essential workers, so meeting with them at night or on the weekend. We spent a lot of time with technology dealing with the lunches, breakfasts and lunch, and spending all day Sunday calling my families and trying to get them all online and get them registered for their meals. That's another part of the technology piece. We definitely, we have a portal for the younger grades that has been helpful that the tech department set up, and everything's posted there. But again, the younger children and the families of the younger children have a harder time with the technology piece. It's because the children haven't been exposed to it, so they can't come home and explain it to their parents. Older students, I would say like 6th through 8th grade, they're really more on their own. They've learned the technology in school, and then they're trying to teach their parents about it at home. I spent a lot of time putting information in Google Classroom, and we send emails, but it has been an easier transition for the older students or families who have older students in the district, even if their children are little.
And I definitely would agree with that. That experience with technology as the children get older and they have older siblings, it's much easier for them to get on, to get this information, and to really understand that they need to do their learning this way now.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, I would say, like in the beginning, everybody was very excited to be in the classrooms and have these meetings and get to see each other. That definitely is one of the most important things. I heard over and over again from families how important it was that their children actually see me. I may not be able to see them, but they can see me and just talk to me, especially for English language learners. You know, they want to see their teacher, and just seeing somebody's expressions too, to help them understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely an extremely important point that you bring up, Jenny. So let's look forward. So going forward, we know that school is not going to come back in person by the end of this year. What are your thoughts about technology and the ELs going forward? What are your plans? Do you have plans for summer programs? Do the districts have plans for collecting electronics when school ends?
A lot of that's up in the air in my district. I heard this week that we will run a summer program, and that's something that I find so important for these kids. They need that continuation of learning. They need that continuation of English. And so a summer program is so important to me. Unfortunately, my summer program is very, very hands-on. We do science experiments. We do technology together. We do art projects. I try to follow the STEAM model, and we do something every day. It's infused with reading and writing. We act stories out. We get big pieces of paper and write all over them. It's such a fun experience for the kids. In fact, in September, the kids are like, are we doing summer school again? They love it. But this year, it's going to be online. So I don't know how it's going to work, honestly. I just found out about it this week. So it's really something I have to explore. Right now, my challenge is getting these kids online and trying to do the work for their classrooms and to do the work for our meeting when we meet. So it will be a challenge. And I don't know, in the past, ours was a 3-hour session. And the 3 hours went like that. It was over, before I knew. Having this, it might have to be sessions with individual kids. It might have to be like groups of 2 or 3 during the day. I don't know, but I am going to try to find a way to infuse that reading and writing and listening and speaking online this summer. So it's going to be a challenge, I'll have to say, but I'm looking forward to it.
Jenny?
Yeah, so in Lumberton, I would say we do not have a summer program. I don't know if we will or not this year. In the future, I think Loom or a program similar to that will be very helpful as more and more of the parents are working during the day hours, and my population is not necessarily at their home or with somebody who maybe doesn't know about technology, so they can't get online until the evening hours. Lumberton's working almost a regular school day. Children sign in for attendance at 7:45. The nurse calls if they don't check in, and their day goes until almost 3 o'clock. Wednesday is a half a day, kind of like a catch-up day. So going forward, I know we'll continue to use the technology that we have. I'm not sure what will happen over summer. I know there's talks about whether or not we're going to let the students keep their Chromebooks or their devices over the summer break and then return them. Right now, I know the teachers are trying to clean up their classroom and putting the students' belongings in containers and getting it returned to the children. So I don't know more about that piece of like technology, but I know Lumberton, we have a great tech department. We'll make sure that the kids have what they need. So
That's great. That's great. Do either of you have anything else that you'd like to add in terms of the technology issues that your students have been facing, or any other kinds of technology that you've used to make it easier for yourselves and for your students?
Well, I have to tell you, I've learned a lot these past few weeks. I've learned to do things I never even thought I'd ever have to do. And it's been a great learning experience for me. And I know it's been for them. And I will tell you that in September, hopefully we'll be back at school. You know that every one of these kids is going to know how to get into Google Classroom, know how to use the different platforms. I think it will be a great way for learning in the future. And you know what I can see is maybe in the future, if kids are absent or kids are missing or kids are somewhere, we can actually use this platform. So it's very, very exciting. It really is. But again, you know, with these ELLs, it's tough because you don't have that knowledge base and the comfort with technology within the family. And we have to create that at school with the students to really make this move forward. Like Jenny was saying, the older kids are very comfortable with it, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Yes, but we need to make sure that the younger kids are more comfortable with it. So something disastrous happens again, we can step right into this. So I think using technology, we've always been said, use technology in your classroom, use technology, and you do for the best you can, but we never even imagined that this would be something that we would have to deal with. I was like, okay, yeah, we'll use technology. Well, guess what? We're using it. So, but anyway, just to get back to one thing, you said there's tech, other tech things. When there's a tech issue or something like that, or a student doesn't know how to do something, they'll contact me. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to contact this person, or I don't know how to, some kids didn't know how to turn in assignments, things like that. So, and we're always dealing with something. They come up against something and there's a question. As a matter of fact, today I got a question from a student and I contacted her teacher and said, we have a question about this. And he was able to respond back. And he also responded back to the student. But sometimes the students are more comfortable talking to me than their classroom teacher. So sometimes it's a channel, like they go to me or I go to them, you're not doing something, and they tell me, and then I tell the teacher, and then the teacher gets back. So the students are not comfortable, the younger students, using that technology and communicating. So it's difficult. It's difficult. Something we need to work with.
Yeah. Yes. Jenny, did you have anything to add?
I think one beneficial thing that we've been doing is having office hours, so I can work with students more like one-on-one or in a group of two if they need help on a specific assignment. And the other thing that I have found is that the students really just like being in like Google Meets. Even if I'm not directly helping them, they might be sitting doing their work on the Chromebook and Google Classroom, but they know they can talk to me if they need help. The other thing I think that would be helpful when we go back to school is having the parent nights or those family engagement nights, showing the families how to use technology and having the devices there for them. That would be great. And again, it's just been amazing to watch the ELLs learn about technology, bring it back to the classroom, and then share that knowledge with their peers. It's been really cute to watch them walk me and others through it. And they're like, we got to use this program. It works really well. We need this for math. Try this, Miss Leonardi, or, we need to go to this site because this works really well. And the other thing is just how great different organizations have been in allowing free use of their materials, like Audible. Chrome has so many great extensions that we can use. A to Z, Time for Kids, Scholastic, all those places are letting us use their resources. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for mentioning that, because I think that has been something that teachers of all, areas have been able to access, and those companies have been really, very helpful. I know the internet providers have been providing the free Wi-Fi, and these content providers providing their information.
I forgot to mention that our tech department reached out and we were able to get free Wi-Fi for many students because of that.
Yeah, we were also able to get that as well, as I mentioned, and that's just wonderful. It really is, because otherwise these kids wouldn't be online.
And I think another piece, just being the teachers, all of the teachers have been more flexible with turn-in dates and assignments. Like a lot of times things get marked late, but there's so many variables out there for the students to overcome, not just the ELL population, but all of our students. So being flexible with that has been a great help too.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate you talking to me, and I look forward to sharing this information with the members of New Jersey TESOL, NJTESOL-NJBE. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome.
And now we're going to speak to Andrea Fonteñez from New Brunswick. She is the Director of Bilingual and ESL Education there. How are you today, Andrea?
Hi, Kathleen. How are you?
Good.
Very good, thanks. And you, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks.
Good.
So when the remote learning began in March, what did New Brunswick have to do in order to make it possible for the emergent bilinguals to be able to do their schoolwork?
So I think that it was a lot of work on part of the technology department and as well as administration, principals, teachers, everybody, all stakeholders who were involved. And we did a wonderful job, and I think especially technology, because we wanted to make sure that all students had Chromebooks to take home. So we distributed the Chromebooks starting that Friday right before we went into the closing of the schools. We started distributing all the laptops, and then we went into the following week to continue distributing all Chromebooks for students. We were able to have, with a schedule, distributed all students from first grade up to 12th grade. They received a Chromebook. And I think that that was really important for everybody, because it made it a little bit easier for the teachers when they had to be planning instruction and reaching all our students, bilingual students especially. So in New Brunswick, we're very big on technology, starting in the lower grades, first grade and up, but more so on third grade and up, where the students are already familiar with Google Classroom. So the transition was not so difficult for the students based on the technology. I think that the issues that started arising had to do with connectivity. But we were very quick in solving those connectivity issues. The district, the technology department purchased like hotspots. We had like over 200 hotspots in all over New Brunswick, especially for those students that live in those buildings where they have low connectivity. So we made sure that there were hotspots, but also the district purchased, has a contract with Optimum Wi-Fi, and all students have access through free internet through their devices. So that was something very important, and that helped to make sure and ensure that all our English language learners or emergent bilinguals had access to internet. Many of our high school students already had a device. It could have been like a tablet, Sprint tablet, or like a smaller device that they were taking home already, and they had their Chromebooks as well. So thanks to the Sprint 1 Million Foundation, all 9th graders received a device. So the students didn't have connectivity with their Chromebook. They were able to get their hotspot with their device as well. And it was troubleshooting, making sure that the devices were working and that the internet connections were available for all the students. And because of that, sometimes we couldn't say we had 100% connectivity. So we devised, technology devised kind of like a device depot, where the students will go into the designated building to exchange their Chromebook or have all the troubleshooting done there with technicians who speak Spanish and are able to reach out to all students no matter the language. And we had online, not online, but like on the phone, like hotlines for those students to connect with technicians. Those were, and they're still advertised through our website for the students to go and connect, enter a ticket, or talk directly with the Spanish-speaking technician, the parents and the students, so they could troubleshoot remotely. And the technicians, they do marvels, like, you know, like remotely they can be controlling the computers. So that was phenomenal work, because I even experienced it with some programs that had to be installed in my own laptop. I had the technicians, I contacted them and they put the programs that I needed to continue with my work online. And it's marvelous how they can do everything remotely.
That's terrific. And the fact that the students can access that in dual language, Spanish and English.
Correct. Yes. Mhm.
That's terrific. And as you moved on, did you find any other issues with remote learning?
So we have Google Analytics, so that allows the technicians and the administrators as well to see which are the areas or the grade levels for which specific groups of students are not being connected or who are not working the way that they should be doing it. So we can track the device and the website used for all our students. We also installed Hapara in all the computers for the teachers. I am not sure if you're familiar with Hapara, but it's kind of like a platform or a website that helps the teachers monitor the engagement that their students have in real time. So the teacher will be able to see exactly where the student is on the internet, what are they doing exactly at that time, and the teachers can immediately remove the student from that website that they are visiting. Let's say if they're in Netflix, so if they are in YouTube for too much and it's not related to any of the work that they have to do, the teacher has the capability of immediately kind of like kicking off the student from that website, and then they can send a message to the student saying you should be doing this work, and this is happening during school hours. So the students can use their devices after school hours if they're done with their work, but during school hours from 8:40 to 3:25, the teachers are in control of the devices, and this has been proven really helpful and has worked really well for our students, especially our population. And then the teacher also can see who are the students who are not logging in, who are not completing the work. They can call their parents, make sure that the students are completing the work, and they have Google meetings with the students one-on-one or in groups, and then we gave the teachers, because not all teachers would know how to use these websites, for example, or how to use Hapara. So we had a virtual professional development district-wide for all staff members. And in this virtual PD, which we called virtual PD or virtual summit, teachers had the option of picking a virtual session that they found interesting and that they wanted to learn more on technology related topics. They had over 40 sessions to choose from. And yeah, and the teachers, then all the feedback was very positive. I particularly participated in 3 of those sessions that I was very interested in participating. They were ways of like learning how to navigate Google Classroom, learning how to do Screencastify, Flipgrid, and even for those teachers who were more advanced in technology, they could create their own Google sites, or they could create escape the room site to make it more engaging and performance-based assessments for the students. So I think that was the biggest highlight in those beginning weeks when we were trying to get everything running and making sure that everybody had the necessary tools with technology, especially with teachers. And there's always a silver lining with all this, because it forced many teachers, even the lower grades, to learn more about technology and how to reach their students, and then be prepared when we come back in September. If we come back, who knows what's going to happen, but maybe we will continue using the technology the way that we are using now, that we're working remotely. So that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Who did the professional development? Was it members of your New Brunswick staff, or did you reach out to other groups?
Yes. So our assistant superintendent, Mrs. Cusa, and the professional development committee and human resources, Dr. McCoy, and professional development supervisors, they contacted an outside company, like a Google consultant company, who developed the professional development for us, targeting exactly the needs that we had. So first they analyzed what were the needs and what were the gaps that the teachers were showing in the different surveys or conversations that we had with the different teachers. And then they made sure that those programs were, or those professional developments were readily and available for all the students, for all the teachers, so that they can use those tools with their students.
That's wonderful. And I noticed earlier that you mentioned that the technology was from 1st grade through 12th. What are you doing with your kindergartners?
So for kindergarten, we were not able to distribute Chromebooks because we didn't have iPads for the students, and given they are so little, we wanted them to have iPads, and they were not going to be arriving on time. There were several issues with the kindergarten. So the kindergarten, the early childhood department developed a plan for all teachers and for all parents, and we created a website, a platform, online platform for the students to be able to log in through different devices. Could be through a mobile, like a cell phone, or it could be through their iPad, tablet, any device that they have. They can access this platform or this website online that the district created, particularly for those students K through 2nd grade. And they have different activities that are age appropriate for our little students. They can go to different programs where like reading A to Z, or different programs where the program can monitor the progress of the student in mathematics or in reading. They also received packets, and the packets were distributed 2 times. So, the teachers are relying a lot on phone communication with the parents, and also as well with Class Dojo. That's another way of showing or sharing with the parents. Visit this link, or make sure that you complete these tasks. We gave the students a choice board as well, and those choice boards are posted weekly online for the students to go and choose the activities that they have to do. And then the parents reply through a survey to the classroom teacher and to the curriculum department. I would say they reply if they completed the assignment. So that would be like an honor system for the kindergarten students, where we're saying, okay, the parent is reviewing or making sure that the student is, or their child is completing the activities. And if they don't, the teachers are following up with the parents, making sure that the students are also engaged remotely.
That's wonderful. I think that's really much more age appropriate for those students. So that's great.
And I also want to say that we have all the websites, and everything that is posted online is in English and in Spanish, and we have resources available in both languages, because we want to make sure that the parents also have access to all the information that we have posted in the website. You should see our website. I think it's phenomenal work, and it keeps improving every single day. We're adding more things based on the needs of the population and the needs of our students. We have, for example, a tab where it says, ask the counselor. So if the parents have any questions that they want to talk with the counselor, they just submit that form that is online, and they say they want to speak with a counselor in English or in Spanish. The counselor immediately contacts the parents and gives them advice for any issues that they may have. We also have Ask the Nurse, which is another really neat feature that we added in our website like a few weeks ago, where the parents can also do the same. They submit a form and they can connect live with one of the school nurses, and it depends if the parent speaks English or Spanish. They make the selection, and the Spanish-speaking nurse will connect with the students, with the parents, and then they are there to give any kind of advice, anything that is medically related. The nurses can give them the advice online.
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah, it's like it's been a lot of work. I think that we're working even longer hours than we would normally work from the office, because it's easy to say, I'm going home, but now you are home, so there's nowhere where to go. It's just
Exactly. Exactly. That seems to be the case across the board.
Yeah,
So,
and yes.
No, I was just going to say, and so looking forward, what things do you see that New Brunswick will continue to do, or it sounds like you've really made improvements as you're going along.
Yeah, so. We're doing so much work. I think that from the very beginning, something that we realized we had to do was do online tutorials for the parents in Spanish. And I did a few myself. All the bilingual teachers who had noticed the need, they did the tutorials for their students as well. We have bilingual parent advisory meetings. We have 3 meetings so far virtually, and I think that we have even a better turnout than when we're doing them in person, because sometimes we will have like just a few parents attending. Now we have meetings where we had over 80 parents, 90 parents.
Wow.
And we gave them the opportunity also to ask questions and to also discuss any concerns that they had. And then all the teachers also participated, and as well as bilingual office staff members, where we took note exactly of what the parents were asking for, so we could follow up, especially for our bilingual and ESL students who may had any questions regarding like any tutorial of how to access. Sometimes on the spot we will be showing them how to do anything that they had questions about. We also, from the very beginning, we had to put together e-learning guidelines for all our teachers, so that they exactly knew which were the ELL supports that they could provide for our emerging bilinguals, what were the supports that they could provide for those students. We kept reminding the teachers that flexibility is the key, because every single student has a different situation at home, which we may not be aware. And it could be not only internet connectivity for that day, or it could be that somebody is sick at home. So we were always making sure that there was that connection between the teacher and the students, so they knew what was happening at home, and giving the students the flexibility that they needed in order to make up for the missed tasks. We developed for bilingual and ESL teachers a pacing guide, because now everything is completely different. We're not going to be following exactly the same curriculum that we would normally have. So we had to develop a pacing guide in conjunction with the other content areas for bilingual teachers, as well as for English as a second language teachers. And in the pacing guide, we were able to say, okay, which standards were covered so far, which standards need to be taking priority for the next few weeks, and then how we're going to be giving the students the education that they really need to make sure that we continue making progress. And along with that pacing guide, also we had to make sure that the teachers knew how to assess their students. And then we had this e-learning assessment guidelines for all teachers, where we included the WIDA rubric and the can-do descriptors, making sure that there were ample opportunities for the teachers to make sure that they were addressing all the different language domains, speaking, reading, writing, and listening in different ways using technology and the different platforms that we have available in the district. So as I was saying, it was a lot of work thinking about the resources that the teachers needed. We purchased PDF versions in order to make novels available digitally. We also were able to get a lot of resources online that we downloaded as a PDF and share those with the teachers, because we wanted to make sure that the curriculum was still addressed. And we have different programs that the teachers were already using during the school year. So now it was just a continuation during remote learning. And we also created folders where we put all these resources for the teachers.
That's a very comprehensive plan that you've got, and it sounds like it's moving, it's going forward and serving the students really well. Do you have a summer program? Are you planning on doing summer as well?
So that's something else that we are doing right now. As of Monday, we're going to start with our extended school day program for English language learners, as well as for our general education population. So the program that we have developed is based on a multidisciplinary view, where the student is going to be taking a course, just say probability, for example, where the students are going to use art and math and real life situations that they are going to be applying the mathematical aspect in probability and developing a project, and it's going to be assessed through performance. We have another program called Ignition, for example, where it's going to help the student work directly with the counselor and develop different ways of how to respond to real life situations. We have another program that is Lights, Camera, Action, where the students can write their own script and then they can perform their own script, and it's all going to be done online. We just announced the program yesterday, and we already have 80 students registered, and there are some students who are asking if they can register more than one. We have 7 programs of courses that we're offering. This is going to be for all our middle school students. For high school students, we're working on credit recovery right now for those students who still needed to make up some of the courses. So we have that very differentiated based on the needs, if they're English language learners, or they're special education students, or they're general education students, and what are the courses that they need, especially for those students to be able to finish the year. We are also planning to have our summer school program, and that's a conversation that we recently started, and we're starting our plans, how it's going to look for each of the different subject areas and for the different populations that we have. Every year we have a summer program for all our English language learners, for all our ESL students, bilingual students. So now we want to see how can we make it remotely and make sure that that's going to be a program that's going to address the needs of all our students. Yeah, and I have to say that New Brunswick is in a very good place right now. We have our equity steering committee, where we meet, and we continue to meet even remotely, looking exactly at where are those areas of those disparities or inequalities that we may see in the district, and how can we fix them. We are very proactive in making sure that all our students receive the education that they need and that they deserve, and making sure that everybody is successful.
It sounds like you're being very successful in reaching that equity goal. No, because in the other districts that I've spoken to, that seems to be the focus, is making sure that this remote learning is equitable for all, and that everyone has the technology that they need to be successful. So, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I think that there's so much going on, and I'm sure that I forgot many other things that I would have liked to mention, and I'm sure when we hang out from this video, I'll be like, oh, I should have said that. But I think that it's a lot of work. We continue doing the best that we can taking into consideration, as I said, the needs of all our students, including our emergent bilinguals. I think that parental involvement is key, and reaching out to our parents is so important. And that's what we can see when we have all these weekly meetings with the different teachers, and reminding the teachers that communication is so important. As I continue to view the work that the teachers are posting in the Google Classroom, I think that the rigor is still there, the high expectations are still there, and all the teachers want the best for their students. So it's a very, it's a wonderful place for all our students and all our teachers.
Congratulations on doing such a wonderful job. And thank you for talking to me today. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Very nice to speak to you. Thank you.